What do Egypt's pyramids, Southeast Asia's floating markets, and Europe's vineyards have in common? Well, that you can explore them all on a luxury river cruise, of course. Hey there, travel lovers. It's your trusted cruise and Tauck tour and Africa safari expert Shawn Power here. And today I want to dive even deeper into the river cruise industry. If you look at the description underneath this video, you'll see a link to a video I did about why river cruising is such a great way to travel. Personally, I've been on over 90 cruises, and 19 of those have been on river cruises. I've also booked hundreds and hundreds of river cruises for my clients, over $30 million worth of business over the last 20 years. So I know a lot about these river cruises, and I've experienced them personally, and I've seen some amazing things. So as I talked about in that last video, river cruising is a great way to travel. But what I want to talk about today is some of the wonderful places that you can go when you take a river cruise. So let's dive into, like I said, the world of river cruising, because there's probably more to it than you realize, and there's probably more places that you can visit than you realize. So first off, we'll talk about Europe. I mean, that's almost a no-brainer, of course, when we're talking about river cruising, because that's where the river cruising industry started. It's where, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm sure at least 80% of the river cruises in the world take place. So a lot of people who do a river cruise fly over to Europe, and there's a lot of different options there. A lot of people, their first time out, they're going to do a Rhine river cruise, between Amsterdam and Basel, Switzerland. They'll go to places like France and Germany and the Netherlands and Switzerland. They'll see some wonderful castles, some charming towns along the way. A lot of people do the Danube river cruise for their first time. That's going to be more the imperial capitals, Budapest, Vienna, Prague. Absolutely stunning area when it comes to the history, the music, the art, absolutely fabulous. When you look at those rivers, Christmas cruise, we call them Christmas markets cruises between late November and right before Christmas are popular as well, where you can go to these same areas and go to a lot of Christmas markets that are famous in a lot of these countries. Tulip times is more of an early in the season thing, where you can go to Amsterdam. You do have a bit of a different river cruise. You'll end up on the Rhine a bit, but you go through some of the Netherlands waterways as well. But you go see the tulips. You'll end up in Keukenhof Gardens. I'm not like a huge flowers person, but when I did it, I was absolutely blown away with, how beautiful all of it was. So it was, again, it was a surprise to me. And that's what I said about river cruising, is that you will probably be surprised with a lot of the things that you can experience. So that was wonderful. Another favorite area of mine in France, and I've done, I think, 5 river cruises there now because I went back multiple times because I like them so much. There's 3 rivers in France. So you've got the Seine River, which is very popular. It's, it runs through Paris. So a lot of people will fly to Paris. They'll do a round trip out to Normandy and back. You're going to learn about, of course, a lot of war history. The Normandy beaches is one of the highlights there. Somber, but so important experience in person at the same time. You're going to go to places like Giverny to see Monet's gardens, Chateau Galard, a beautiful fortress there from Richard the Lionheart had many years ago. You're going to go to Rhône. You're going to just all these great little towns. So again, the Seine is very popular. I've also done the Rhône River so I did the Seine River a couple of times because it was so great. I went back. I did the Rhône River a couple of times. In France, I'd have to say the Rhône is probably my favorite river because, it's just a little bit of everything. Yes, you get your vineyards and stuff, but you get some great little places as well, like going to Avignon and going to the Palace of the Popes and, so some spectacular ruins and stuff as well in Arles. So it's not just all about the vineyards and stuff. Whereas if you go to Bordeaux, which is another, the third area you can do a France river cruise, that was like every day I felt like we were doing wine tasting and we were in, chateaus, the winery chateaus and stuff, which was fabulous. But if you want a bit more diversity, I don't think that's the one. Now, what I did when I went to France was I flew over and I did like 3.5 weeks in France all at one time. So I did the Seine River, then I did the Bordeaux River, then I did the Rhône River. And like I said, since then I went back and I've done, multiple other times. But the point is, if you have the time and money, fly over and do a few of these river cruises at once. You'll save money on airfare by doing it that way. You'll spend more time in Europe, which means you'll be more in a vacation mode. You'll be more used to the time zone. It's just a great way to travel. Also in Europe, you've got, speaking of the Danube, there's also the lower Danube. Now that's where you're going to go to places like, Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary as well. Now that's a little bit of a different one. Like I tell people, I don't suggest that the first time because you're not going to get the beautiful scenery. That's more of a very historic area. It's we call it Eastern Europe. It's not as well developed as some of the other areas. It doesn't have the same beauty, but it's fascinating history. The people are really, great to talk to there. I learned things that, I just had no idea about when it came to the wars and, how they've been controlled by other countries and stuff. It was just really incredible. But it's not like the rest of the Europe, where you're going to see these, necessarily fabulous scenery and sights and that. So it's a bit of a different river cruise. So I kind of suggest doing that one later down the road. But again, such a great one to do and to get a feel for what that's like. So that's the lower Danube. Whereas when you're going to like Budapest, Vienna, Prague, we call that the upper Danube. So the Danube's quite big, and you can do a couple of rivers there, or a couple of different itineraries there. There's also the Main, M-A-I-N, the Main River, which kind of runs right through Germany. So when I did it, I started in Nuremberg, Germany, cruised right through Germany, and ended up in Luxembourg. So very German focused. I remember going to beer halls, trying different beers, going to, we had a lot of different foods. We tried, I remember going to pretzel maker's place and, seeing how he makes the pretzels and trying that out. So that was just really immersed in the German culture, which I thought was fascinating. So there's so many options in Europe. And then actually there's two more I haven't mentioned yet. There's also the Douro River, which is in Portugal. Absolutely beautiful area. You start in Porto, which is one of my favorite cities. It was very unexpected how nice that city was. And you sail up the Douro River right through Portugal. And when you hit Spain, you stop right at the border. So the ship doesn't go into Spain, but they take you on a tour into Spain to see a place called Salamanca. They call it the Golden City. Again, a wonderful visit there. And then the Douro was so scenic. It's only a short river. I think it was like a day and a half by the time you sailed from, beginning to end. The whole itinerary takes a week because they slow it down. You go back and forth. But the point is, it's not a long river, but it was so scenic when you go through like the Douro Valley and you see the vineyards and everything. Absolutely gorgeous. And then you've got the Po River, P-O, is in Italy. This one you kind of fly over. You get on the ship in Venice, you get off the ship in Venice. I did that about a decade ago. I don't know if I really recommend that for you because it's not much of a river cruise. I think like we sailed on the Po River, no kidding, for about an hour and a half over the week. We did some sailing around a Venice Canal, but it was really like a floating hotel where you just sit in Venice and you're going off the places. But like it was always like a 2-hour drive, an hour and a half drive. I just don't recommend it for, I don't think it's a good river cruise. I think there's better ways to do Italy, but I just wanted to throw it out there because you're going to see that. So again, Danube River, Rhine River. There's 3 rivers in France, southern France on the Rhône, the Seine River, Paris and Normandy. You've got the Bordeaux area. Then you've got, I think I might have just said already, you got the lower Danube, the Po River in Italy, and then you got the Douro River in Portugal. Europe itself, you could go for years and years and years, as I did, and do a dozen river cruises and still not see it all. So Europe, of course, like I said, is huge in the river cruising industry. Now, let's talk about the rest of the world because this surprises people where they don't even realize you can do some of these river cruises. And I've done quite a few of them myself. So first off, probably one of the most popular ones is the Mekong River in Vietnam and Cambodia. I love Southeast Asia. And there's different ways you can do it. Some people do a land tour, some people do it different ways. But I just think a river cruise was a fabulous way to see it because again, so what I did was, we flew in, spent a couple of days in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. Then we got on the river boat. We cruised up the river where we passed over the Cambodian border, spent some time in Cambodia, of course, went to Angkor Wat, saw the temples and everything. I mean, it was just fabulous. Then we flew up to Hanoi back in Vietnam again. We went out to Halong Bay. This is a couple of week itinerary. So seeing that area by river cruise is fabulous because again, you get to see these floating markets and you get to visit some small towns and the people are just so nice there. The food was fabulous. The sights were fabulous. And there's just so much history. I mean, some of these places are thousands of years old. So I love the Mekong in Southeast Asia. One of my favorite areas in the world is Egypt. I've been there a couple of times now. I loved my river cruise on the Nile in Egypt. And just a lot of people think about Egypt and they think about Cairo and they think about the pyramids. And that was nice, but these pyramids are like, they're almost in the city. When you're at the pyramids, you can kind of see Cairo. It's fascinating, but you're still kind of around modern, we'll call it. But when you fly down and you get on the Nile River and you start seeing places like Luxor and the Valley of the Kings and Karnak Temple and Abu Simbel, I mean, that just is what blew me away on that itinerary. So you don't want to just to fly to Cairo and see you've been to Egypt. You really want to get on the Nile River and you want to see as much as you can down there. Absolutely fabulous trip. And even now, like a lot of people think, oh, because it's close to Israel and the war and stuff, they think it's not safe to go there. It literally nothing has changed in Egypt. This is summer 25. I've had dozens and dozens of clients there since the beginning of the year and every year since the war started. So yes, it's close, but it's not spilling in. And also when you do that, most people do also fly to Jordan to see Petra before or during that, somewhere during that river cruise. So again, Jordan and Egypt, totally fine, no tourism problems at all there. So that's still, open and people are going there, as much as ever. So great trip is the Nile in Egypt. What else? We've got the U.S. river cruises. Now, I've never done the U.S. river cruises yet. We're talking the Mississippi is the main one. The reason I've done that is because everyone who's done it says it's kind of a really slow paced itinerary. They say like, look, wait till you're 80, 90, do it when you don't want to fly anywhere else. So, I took all my clients who've done it, their advice, and I'm just going to wait till later on. It's also a bit of a tricky itinerary because there's not a lot of options there. For years, there was two American-based companies. One of them went out of business after COVID. The other one is not rated very high. Viking River Cruises did come into the market a couple of years ago. They've kind of raised the bar. So I have had a lot of clients on Viking since then, and they've all enjoyed it. So again, it's an itinerary where I book some clients, when they don't necessarily want to kind of keep traveling, taking these long flights. But again, maybe do the rest of the world first and wait for that one down the road. But again, the Mississippi, New Orleans is probably where you're going to start. You might end up in, Tennessee, Memphis, those areas. So you got your U.S. rivers. There's also a Columbia River as well. There's no choice up there really with, the lines, and the one who's up there is not really highly rated. So hopefully eventually Viking ends up there. And again, hopefully they raise the bar. A couple of other notable mentions. Colombia, this is brand new, like this year in 2025, on the Magdalena River. AMA Waterways, who's one of the major river cruise lines, they started a new itinerary there. So it literally just started like months ago. I haven't done it myself. I've got clients, going on it. I've got some reviews from other people and stuff. So, it looks great. I'm going to for sure be doing it hopefully within the next year because, I like to do all these to try them so I can kind of, tell you more about them. But what I love about that itinerary, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the closest river cruise you can do outside of North America. So you don't have to fly far. It's a very easy flight to get to Colombia. And it's just easy. So I think that's going to be one of the highlights for a lot of people, and people want to go to Colombia. I mean, you end up in places like Medellin, Cartagena. You can even tag on Panama City as well. So that's one that, hopefully I'll talk about in another video more extensively, but definitely want to keep in mind is in Colombia. You've also got the Amazon River, which you would think there would be river cruises down there, but it's not at all a popular place to do river cruises. None of the major lines go there. Avalon Waterways, they have I think it's a 3 or 4 day itinerary. Really the purpose of it is just to tag onto a Galapagos cruise. I had some clients do it over the years. It just wasn't well, reviewed, wasn't well rated. AMA Waterways spent I think over a year. Christine and Rudy, who are the owners, they flew down. They spent so much time working with one of the locals down there, who I actually met as well and stayed at, with him and his wife at their home. They really wanted to create an itinerary down there on the Amazon, but they literally couldn't find an interesting enough itinerary to have their clients fly all the way from America. So again, even though we think about the Amazon, I don't really suggest it. If you want to just say you sail on the Amazon River, take an ocean cruise from Florida. It's usually about 25, 30 days. It goes from Florida down up the Brazil side. You stop in 7 or 8 places down there, and then you come back up. Again, it's on an ocean cruise though, not on a river cruise. So, but at least you can get to say you sail on the Amazon River. Beyond that, India also has a river cruise over there. I think right now there's probably only one major river cruise line doing it, which is Uniworld. I had some clients do it years ago. Again, wasn't well rated because, they have to spend so much, they have to spend at least a week on the river to make it justify for you to fly all the way over there. But the problem is there's just not enough to see, in this kind of area where the river is. So basically, when I went to India, which was by far one of my favorite trips ever, I've been to over 90 countries, and India's in my top 5 for sure. I did it with Tauck on a land tour, and it was fabulous. But the point is India is very spread out. So, yes, we went to New Delhi, and yes, we went out to Varanasi, to see the cremations on the, on the river out there. So we did get out to the river, but just for a night. And then we of course went to the Taj Mahal, and we were in Udaipur and Jaipur, and we went down south to Kochi, and we went up in Mumbai and Bombay. So the point is that I think the problem with the river cruise is you just don't get to see enough of India. So again, that's an option. Don't necessarily recommend it. Do a Tauck land tour instead. Beyond that, there's a few more that just don't really happen anymore. I did one in Myanmar many years ago on the Irrawaddy River. It was wonderful. We were one of the first tours there, I think, about 10 years ago. We were like the attraction. We were going to some of these small towns, and like they were like fascinated with us. You know, these foreign people, they'd never, you know, met people like that in their lives. And I'm talking places with like no running water, no electricity. It was so cool. But of course, because, you know, of the conflicts there since, it all had to go away. So hopefully one day Myanmar might open up again, because it was a wonderful place to visit. Beyond that, I love the Yangtze River cruise I did in China many years ago. And that's not necessarily a safety thing. I think it's just more of a political thing these days. None of the American companies are really going there. So again, hopefully one day it'll open back up. I absolutely loved it. I mean, you're going to go to places like, you know, Xi'an to see the Terracotta Warriors. You'll go see the Great Wall. You're going to see Tiananmen Square, Summer Palace. You're going to see, I mean, it was just everything. You know, there was so much stuff there. The Three Gorges Dam. It was a wonderful, wonderful river cruise. It's just not something that you can really do right now with any of the, you know, companies that you're familiar with. And then beyond that, you've also got the Volga River in Russia. I never got a chance to do that. I was about to, but we all know what happened with Russia. So I think it's going to be a long time before that would ever come back. But again, I did have clients who did it many years ago. It goes between Moscow and St. Petersburg. People absolutely loved it. It said it was fascinating. And I've been to Russia a couple of times, not on a river cruise, so I can absolutely see why it would be great. But we all know what's happening with Russia right now. So it's just not a great place to go. So it's going to be a long time. So anyway, hopefully that gives you an overview. I know that's a lot of info and there's a lot of places you can go, but I just wanted you to know that if you do get involved with river cruising and you like it, there's a lot of places you can go. Oh my goodness, I forgot one of my favorite places I've ever done a river cruise, Africa. Now I know you probably think, Africa, really? Absolutely. So basically, I went to Africa and I did a safari just like most people do. You know, I went to Cape Town for a few days. I went to Victoria Falls to see the waterfalls, which are fascinating. We went to Johannesburg to learn about apartheid and a lot of the history. We went to, of course, Kruger National Park to see the animals, and we saw everything from the leopards to the lions to the elephants to the cheetahs, and you name it. But AMA Waterways is the only company who does this. They have a 4-night river cruise sailing on the Chobe River, which is in Botswana, and you go into Namibia as well. So that's kind of part of the itinerary. It ends up being like a 2-week itinerary. It was absolutely fabulous. What we did on land was wonderful, but what we did on the boat for 4 nights, and when I say boat, it's like there's 14 rooms, 28 people, so it really is a boat. We used to get off the boat every day, the big one, you know, the big 28-person boat, and get on these small, you know, almost little rowboats, but, you know, with engines, of course. But the point is, we do water safaris. And I mean, just the way we saw crocodiles there and some hippos and stuff. So I just felt what we experienced on the water was very different from what we experienced on land. Now, don't get me wrong. Africa safaris are very expensive to start with, and this adds $5,000 to $6,000 per person to the price if you do that. But again, if it's in your budget, it's a wonderful way to experience Africa by doing the 4-night water safari, the river cruise, along with an Africa, you know, a normal Africa safari that you would do. So there you go, another place I just threw in there. So again, some of the top ones besides Europe, you've got Egypt, you've got the Mekong, Vietnam, and Cambodia, you've got Africa that I just brought up. I think Colombia is going to be really, really popular. Again, you've got the U.S., you know, options there now with Viking. And beyond that, Europe, of course, like I said, is a whole plethora of river cruises. So anyway, I hope that gave you some good information. You know, any questions, of course, let me know. Add a comment to this video. Contact me on my website at ShawnPower.com. And beyond that, in the next video, what I'm going to talk about is, you know, what I think is probably one of the, you know, top or some of the top river cruises that you can consider for your first river cruise when you decide to take one. So again, hopefully you got some good value out of this, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye. Have a great day.